Here in Lough Corrib, the season actually opens quite early. It's on the 15th of February and runs right through to the end of September. So we have 7.5 months of fishing. So right at the start, in the middle of February, we're not looking at any major fly hatch. So what we're at then is probably we're at hog louse and shrimp feeders. So that time of the year we'd be fishing dabblers, different rounded dabblers, whatever, and fishing on the shallows. Sometimes fishing fry patterns like to imitate stickleback or small coarse fry. First hatch of the season, most important one because it's the first one, happens around mid-March, and that's the duck fly, which is quite a famous hatch here in the Corrib. Duck fly is actually a buzzer, a chronomid, and you could normally expect it to start appearing middle of March, around Paddy's Day. So that lasts for about 2 to 3 weeks. Generally, we're buzzer fishing for that, but not always. We get some good dry fly fishing that as well, and sometimes the old traditional patterns would work as well. Sometimes like a Cape McLaren, a Blaine Black, they work well. And then on the dries, one of favourite patterns is the Palomino midge. And then in the buzzers, we're looking at generally size 12 epoxy buzzers. Next hatch then, after the duck fly, is the olives. We're looking about April then. Mid-April, can go right on into the middle of May. Sometimes later, sometimes earlier. Olives are really popular here in Ireland, and they've brought about some long tradition of fly dressing with it. Best patterns on the wet flies will be things like the cock robin, which is well known, the sooty olive, the golden olive bumble. The list is endless, but I mean I picked those three out because they're the three that come to my mind on the wet fly patterns. Dries then we're looking at different types of clink hammers. Dry fly fishing can be good with them, and we also fish the nymphs on them as well. So you're looking there probably an array of pheasant tail or hare's ear, generally in the size of the fly itself, which is around a size 12. Then around April as well, we get our second hatch of buzzer, which is the Camto buzzer. It's a bigger buzzer than the duck fly, and that gives some fantastic fishing on the Corrib here to straight line buzzer fishing. So what we're looking there is you're on your epoxy or your glue buzzers, size 10s, team of 4. I like a team of 4. Some guys fish a team of 3. They have some fantastic fishing, and that actually probably picks up best average size of fish on the lake here, because when that buzzer comes around, the bigger fish tune in on it and gorge themselves on it. Then after the Camto or the olive, probably about the same time it just starts, May is the famous Mayfly hatch. Corrib is renowned worldwide for the Mayfly, and that's actually why we're here today. Patterns, the list is endless. There's a huge list of patterns for the Mayfly, but you're generally looking at either wets or dries. Do a bit of nymph fishing on them, not as much as we would, let's say, for the buzzers. The wets, we're looking there, we can have Hackle Mayflies, Lough Arrow Mayflies, Loch Mass specials. We've got a few patterns coming in now next year done by famous Irish fly tyer Jackie Mahan, and they're really good, some really good wet patterns as well. Then on the dries, the go-to pattern for dry Mayfly really is the wolves. With huge range of wolf patterns. One of my favourite ones is actually the Corrib wolf. Generally in size 10. My own one there, the caffeine, I like that. I like that on a certain type of day, the caffeine wolf. A few Davies wolves in there as well. All in around a size 10, sometimes a 12, depending what lakes you're on. Corrib, they like a 10. But yeah, and the dries can really come into the 4 Mayfly time. You can have some spectacular fishing. So after May then, quietens down a bit, going into June, particularly for the daytime fishing. However, in the last couple of years, what we've really come popular is the Canis fishing. Canis used to be called the angler's curse, but with recent advancement in tippet material and hooks and dressings, they're no longer a curse, and we can actually target fish that are feeding on Canis, because they're tiny, but more importantly, we can catch them. So you're looking at micro Canis patterns, size 18, size 20, and tippet, like in the masterclass there, go down at least 5.5x or 6x, sometimes 7x. Now the thing about Canis, it's an early bird. You've got to be up at the crack of dawn and out for this. The sun won't be too long up when the Canis start moving. Generally you fish right through to mid-morning, but quite often you're looking at the time is any time from 5:30, 6 a.m. in the morning right through to 9 a.m. So it is for the early risers. So that gets you through June. Come then, And just goes to show what's on in Corrib all the time. Coming into July, we get the second hatch of Mayfly. Not as prolific as the first hatch that we get in May, but still sizable enough quite often for the fish to turn onto them. I've had some fantastic fishing in July, and nice thing as well, the lake isn't as crowded. So same patterns there, actually, you know, for what you'd be using back in May time. Also as well, then we get sedges, quite good hatches. Sedge here from July through to August. One of my favourite patterns on the Corrib is the Walker sedge in a size 12. Got a lot of fish fishing that dry. You look at it, it's quite a nondescript pattern, but it works. So you've sedges going right through to the end of the season. So the Walker sedge, don't forget the chocolate drop, and the claret drop sedges, really good patterns. Dry fly fishing again comes into its own. You can catch them on the wets, certain patterns there. I mean, the old green peter, it's a fly synonymous with Ireland. Always got to have that in your box, and you put that on a team of wets and you'll catch with it. Moving on then, daddy long legs from July right through to September. Fulling mill foam daddy, can't be without it. Cannot be without it. The real foam daddy, the daddy hog, absolutely killing patterns. Fish them dry when you're not seeing anything moving. You mightn't even see a daddy long legs on the water. Just chuck a pair of them out, you'd be surprised what will turn up. Later in the season then, sometimes in September, you get a second hatch of olives, but it's not something that I'd plan for, but they can happen and they can hatch. So, you know, be prepared for them. Sedges are still there, but to be honest, back in September, you're switching more towards pulling again. Fish are becoming quite aggressive then, the spawning's on their mind, going to lash out at things. So yeah, wets can come back into the fore then, big time, and fry patterns, minkies, etc. Pulling them, yeah, you can get a response. So yeah, and then unfortunately the end of September comes and that's the end of the season on Corrib. But look, there's so much there to keep us going throughout the season, and well catered for by Fulling Mill.